Hi guys, welcome back to the Aspiring Home Cook. My name is Trisha, and in today's video I'm going to share with you another super easy and delicious recipe. If you've been visiting these parts for a while, you'll know that I'm all about easy, quick to put together and tasty food, and this recipe is no exception. I'm going to share with you a quick and easy recipe for miso soup. Now, before we go into the kitchen and take a look at today's recipe, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to my channel. And once you do, click on that little bell icon so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. So now let's head on over to the kitchen and take a look at today's recipe. Now, this is a super simple and quick recipe, and it's perfect even for those weeknights where you don't have much time. What I've got here is some sesame oil. If you don't have sesame oil, you could also use peanut oil. I've got some organic miso over here. This is the white miso. I bought this box from Costco, but you can use whatever miso paste you've got locally available. I've got some soy sauce over here. This is about a tablespoon worth. And I've got some vegetable stock powder to make up my vegetable stock. If you're eating a strictly plant-based diet, just make sure that whatever stock powder you're using is plant-based. As for my veggies and my fresh ingredients, I've got 2 cloves of garlic and a little bit of ginger. I'm not going to use the whole piece. I'll just probably use about a teaspoon's worth of chopped ginger. I've got a spring onion, 1 carrot, a little bit of broccoli, and 1 large mushroom. I find that these flat mushrooms have a lot more flavor than the little button ones, but use whatever you have locally available. And for the record, that's just what these are called at my local greengrocer. They just label them as flat mushrooms. Now, I'm going to use some fried tofu puffs as my protein element today. Instead of this, you can also use some pan-fried tofu. And since I'm making a complete meal out of this soup, I'm going to use some noodles. Today, it's going to be these udon noodles. Again, use whatever you have access to. Ramen noodles also work really well. Now, we're going to start off by chopping off our veggies. I'm just going to leave the stem of the mushroom in and just slice these up. Now, if you've got access to these mushrooms, please use them. I cannot tell you how flavorful these get. And the beauty is they taste completely different from what pan-fried mushrooms taste. Now, my husband's not a big fan of mushrooms, but he absolutely adored the mushroom in this soup. I'm just going to cut it down the middle so that they're more manageable bite-sized pieces. Now, with the carrot as well, we're looking for bite-sized pieces. So I just simply cut my carrot down the middle, and then at an angle, I'm going to slice them into pretty thick slices like you can see here. Now, with the carrot done, we're moving on to our broccoli. Now, don't discard the stem of the broccoli. It's equally tasty and beautiful in this soup as well. I just cut off a thin slice, and all these little end pieces, you can actually store them in a little bag in the freezer and use them to make a beautiful vegetable broth when you have enough. I'm going to cube these down a little because these take a little longer to cook than the florets do, and then just trim off a few florets to add to the soup as well. Now, with my spring onion, I'm actually going to cut this down into 2 different sizes. The bottom portion, or the white, and the light green portion will be cut down a little thinner compared to the darker green or the leaf portion. Again, little slices on the diagonal for these bits. And with the leaves, I'm going to leave them a little on the chunkier side. Now, as far as the ginger goes, like I said, I'm just going to use a tiny piece of it, about that much. You can keep the skin on if you like. I'm just going to peel that out, and I'm going to reserve that skin to add into my veggie offcuts that'll go towards making my broth. Now, you've got 2 options here. You can either use a grater and finely grate down the ginger if you don't like chunks of ginger, but I'm okay with the chunks. We actually love the flavor of ginger in this soup. So I'm just going to chop it down really fine, chop it down as fine as you can. I cut mine into slices and then julienne it, turn that around and give it a fine dice. And then to make that even finer, I just go over it with the blade of my knife, guiding it across the pieces of ginger to give it a finer dice. And for my garlic cloves, after I peel them, I'm just going to add a little pressure using the side of the blade of the knife very carefully and repeat the process of mincing them finely like we did with the ginger. Now, with all the chopping of your fresh ingredients done, the hardest part of the soup is ready. It'll come together so quickly. It's not like your traditional soup or stew that needs to simmer away for hours together. It comes together just in a few minutes. So have everything chopped up and prepped, and that'll make the cooking process a whole lot simpler once you get started. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is start off by making my vegetable stock. I'm going to use about 1.5 liters of stock in all. So follow your packet instructions to make up your stock. Since I don't have a bigger glass at the moment, I'm just going to use 2 cups of hot water. That's the capacity of this glass, but I'm going to use the amount of stock I need to make 1.5 liters of stock, if that makes sense. If you've got a bigger bowl or a mixing glass, just go ahead and mix up 1.5 liters worth of vegetable stock. I've got a vessel heating on some medium heat here. You don't want it to get too hot. Into that goes a teaspoon of that sesame oil or peanut oil, depending on what you're using. And I'm going to add my chopped ginger and garlic into this. And you'll notice that instant aroma that fills the room. It smells so good already. I can't wait for the soup to get ready. Give that a little bit of a stir. You don't want this to caramelize. You just want it to heat through and get some of that rawness out of the aromatics. Into this, I'm going to add my miso paste. I'm going in with about, I'd say, 2.5 tablespoons of miso paste. And to this, I'm going to add that vegetable broth. Now give this a good stir to make sure that that miso paste dissolves into the stock. Once the miso has dissolved, I'm going to add the rest of my hot water. If you're using 1.5 liters of vegetable stock, you will add all of that stock in right at the start. Now into this, I'm going to add my soy sauce. I'm starting with about 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, and I'll add more as needed. Remember, you're going to get some amount of seasoning from that miso paste as well as the stock. So depending on the salt content in both of those things, you'll need to adjust the amount of soy sauce that you're adding to the soup as well. I've given that a little bit of a stir, and I'm going to start adding my fresh vegetables. First, I'm going to put in my mushrooms. And we're just going to let that come back to a boil. I add my vegetable in stages so that the temperature of the soup is always maintained. Next, I'm going to add the carrots and the broccoli. And once your veggies are in there, all you're going to do is let the soup simmer until those vegetables are done to your liking. Time the cooking of your noodles so that they're ready almost about the same time as your soup is ready too. Once those vegetables have cooked to your liking, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. Now, if you're using fried tofu puffs like I am, I'm just going to pop them into the soup right now, which is right at the very end of the cooking process. If you're just using pan-fried tofu, you can just place that in the bowl when you're ready to serve up your soup. Check your broth for seasoning at this point and add a little more soy sauce if you need to. And I'm going to add in the chopped spring onions as well. Adding this at the very end makes sure it retains all of that beautiful flavor and brightens up the soup. And guys, with that, this beautiful pot of ginger miso soup is ready to be served. My noodles have also cooked up, so all that's left to do is plate things up. Start off by adding a portion of noodles at the bottom of your serving dish, and then all that's left to do is ladle out those veggies and those tofu puffs on top. I do this first so that I can ensure that a little bit of everything goes into each bowl. This recipe makes enough for 4 servings, but I just make enough noodles for 2 servings at this point. My husband and I will enjoy the leftovers of the soup for lunch tomorrow, and while I'm reheating the soup, I'll put another portion of noodles to boil then. And then you're simply going to ladle all that gorgeous broth over the noodles and the vegetables. And guys, with that, this beautiful ginger miso soup is ready to be served. Now this next bit is optional, which is why I did not list it in the original ingredient list. But if you've got it on hand, please add it. I'm going to put in a little bit of chili oil over the top. This is a homemade batch of chili oil, and I hope to share this recipe with you really soon. As you can see, I'm almost out of this batch. It adds so much of flavor to Asian dishes and is so much better than the store-bought variety. And now my bowl of soup is ready to be served. So guys, that was my quick and easy version of a beautiful miso soup. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you really soon with another delicious recipe. So till then, take care. Bye.